Welcome to Unguarded. This is a podcast where we talk about relationships in every season and different areas of our lives. And I'm Beck, and this is Joe.
We're the Smiths.
We're the Smiths.
And we're going to talk about some stuff today.
We are going to talk about some stuff. Let's see where this takes us.
Okay, where should we take it?
Well, we're going to talk about intimacy.
Nice. Yeah. It's a conversation we've been having a lot with people recently, and things have been coming up. So we're like, think it'd be great to dive into the pod. We've talked about sex on episodes before, and we thought we said enough, but people are like, no, we want more.
I literally had someone run up to me. Wow, that leaf blower is loud again. I literally had someone run up to me and was like, hey, I love the first 2 episodes of sex, but please talk about it in the context of marriage.
But that's not what we're only going to do today, right?
No, but we have to go there at some point.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, get back to me in a few months. I'm still processing the first 2 episodes of sex. And if you haven't listened to those 2 episodes called Sex Part 1, Part 2, highly recommend you watching that and then stop and go to that and come back. It's not that it's necessary. I'm just saying that a lot of people have started following us recently and haven't gone back. And I just think those 2 episodes are important conversations.
So what about this episode? What do you have to say about intimacy?
That we need it. We need it, but we all are very different. Like when I started talking to you about it last night, I think, I was like, it's different. I was going to say it's different for men and women, but then also it's different for who has like maybe a bigger sex drive than the other.
Like how do you navigate and deal with when people have different sex drives?
Yeah.
So how do you? Yours is so vibrant and humming. Your sex drive is so powerful.
Non-existent.
How do you deal with such a high sex drive?
Well, if you don't catch the sarcasm, he's being sarcastic. Yeah, I mean, I think it's not to say that I don't enjoy sex and I love sex, but I don't have as a high sex drive or a necessity for it as you do. So, and I think it's interesting because I think you have a healthier view of sex than me.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Because my past is more heavier than yours. And I feel like I'm like unwinding or unraveling the thoughts that I had about sex. One, outside of, maybe I have always believed in God, so that's always been in the back of my mind. But having sex in relationships when I was dating and I didn't enjoy it or didn't really want it, but still did it. It's like complicated. Again, watch the
You didn't really
episodes.
Want it?
Maybe, but this is the thing. I don't think I necessarily wanted sex. I wanted intimacy.
Okay, what's the difference?
I wanted to feel close to someone. I wanted to feel needed. I wanted to feel loved. And I liked the feeling of being so close to someone and thinking, okay, if we have sex, then they'll love me.
We did see that captured very beautifully in a recent episode, right, of Landman. You remember that episode?
Oh, yes. Oh,
one of our favorite shows.
Gosh,
yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. Ugh.
Yeah. And it's one of the characters is she's the daughter of the main lead, and she's wild and terrifies me with Rocky and going, I need to lock her in a closet like Harry Potter style and never let her out because this girl is going buck wild, right? But such an interesting character because it's somebody who obviously is very broken, in pain, and using, sex and her wild, rebellious spirit, acting like that's who she really is.
Yeah, that's what she acts with the dad. She's like, oh yeah, we have sex all the time, and or we have do sexual acts, and he's like, wow, I don't need to know that information.
Yeah.
But she, go on.
No, yeah. And then, in the first kind of half of the season, it's just her and these sexual escapades and just trying to like shock jock and acting like, yeah, this is who she truly is. And then she meets a character and there's like there's some of that aspect of like the primal, there's attraction, but it feels a little bit deeper. And then there's one scene where, they do have sex, spoiler alert, but afterward they're laying in bed and she's just like crying. And she's like, I've never done this before. And he thinks she's talking about, I've never actually had sex before. And she's like, no, I've never actually laid in a bed with somebody. I've never had somebody close to me.
Yeah.
Like it's always an act.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was, and who knows, they don't get into the nuances, whether like what her sexual past was, but the beauty of that moment is what she's communicating is I may have had sex before, but maybe it's the first time I've actually had intimacy. The closeness of somebody, and that I'm worth not just the act of sex, but I'm worth the like cuddle. I'm worth the conversation. I'm worth the time spent.
Which is what I love. When the dad was earlier on in another relationship when he just wanted her for sex. And he kind of tells her like, oh, you're worth more than that. And then she says, okay, well, because he's staying the night, can I just go downstairs just to be with him? And he's like, okay, if you promise that's just that, not sex. And she's like, I promise. And she does stick to her word, but when she asks the guy, like, will you just cuddle me? He says no. And then she realizes, oh, you actually don't care about me at all. And I love that the dad was like, I think there is, even though you're acting like you just want sex or you don't care that he just wants you for sex, they actually deep down you do care. And I think that is every girl most of the time.
What does every girl want most of the time?
Is to be loved.
To be loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is to actually be known and loved. Like, you know me, you know my flaws, and you love me. And I don't know what goes wrong, like what disconnects, where you believe the lie that if I do the physical, then I'll get the intimacy, and then I'll get the cuddles. Like if I placate you, is that the word, placate?
Placate.
Yeah, if I placate you in this, then I'll get what I want in return. But then even if you get what you want in return, you feel void afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
So that being said, I have that in the back of my mind, getting married to you, and also a feeling like I'm not as free or adventurous maybe as you are. And I'm like, oh, it should be just this. And you're like, why does it have to be this? Why can't it be so many more things? Like, you have such more freedom when it comes to sex because you have no sense of shame over it. You haven't twisted it in your head. It doesn't seem that way anyway.
Yeah.
Even as someone, a man of faith, you're like, yeah, God gave us this gift, so why not?
For sure. It's been a journey. Yeah, like I do feel like I have a healthier view of sex, And I don't know, maybe we'll just go there for a second, go deep. Like, porn is such a huge issue with so many guys, and it's one of the top things that I'll have guys come and ask about, or like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I feel like it's touched everyone, right? And it's just it breaks my heart because obviously anybody who knows, even research, not even about spiritually, even just biologically, mentally, the things it does to our brain, science is showing research that it just absolutely destroys us, right? Yeah. But so many guys are being drawn to it, and it's like this playground of unhealth when it comes to sex. And so I do think that's a huge reason why a lot of people have unhealthy relationship with sex, is because a lot of it, and early on, was informed by toxic, unhealthy, realistic, understanding of sex, right? And
like, it changes your, like, as a young person, because I remember being at people's houses, and at 14, 15, I remember guys turning on porn in a party.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would I want to watch that? That's so disgusting. So I just went to another room. But they were publicly, like, watching it. So I'm like, okay, if they, and as a teenager, you think you're old and you think you know what you're doing. But your brains are still being formed. So what you're kind of saying is like, okay, if your brains are unformed and you're taking in this information. You don't even know how this information is forming your brain
Sure.
to think a certain way about intimacy or about you or about sex or about women, that kind of could derail you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I think because, I just never struggle with it. I think that it's a thing I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
It's a thing that...
You were just never curious? And like never cared for it or never?
I was curious definitely about sex, and I was curious enough I had sex. We've talked about this right on the pod. I had sex when I was in high school, and so it wasn't that. It's just I'm just trying to even connect dots of like, and receiving what you're even saying. Hey, having a freedom in sex, I don't feel like I do. A healthy vantage point in sex, because I feel like I do. And I think reverse engineering, a part of that was not struggling with porn. And I don't know, that's not because I was anything better. I wasn't better than anyone. I also remember being at a party, a friend's house, or not at a party. I wasn't cool enough to go to parties like you. I was a social butterfly. I was at a friend's house.
Yeah.
And they put it on. I'd never seen porn before.
Yeah.
I think I was 13, 14, 15, something like that. And I just remember feeling like sick in my soul.
Yeah.
And I remember turning, like the moment they put it on in the first image. And I was like, I just felt sick. And I turned, and then they like clowned me, made fun of me. And I was just like, hey, I'm going to go. And I left. And I'm still friends with a lot of that crew, but they knew, because I also felt it was important to establish that's just not going to be me. Mm-hmm. You do you. I'm not going to judge you, but that's just not going to be my story. And I just never wanted to see sex in that space. Like I wanted to have sex, but I was like, I feel like that's not the right environment.
Yeah.
And so I think it did protect me. I think just honestly spiritually, I think just really, for whatever reason, God helped protect my heart in that sense. And I think that's why I could have a freedom, and then when I did mess up, because again, not mess up, but when I chose to have sex before I got married, and in a relationship during high school, and then to decide afterwards, okay, that's not the story I want to tell. The story I want to tell is I want to wait till I'm married. I want my wife to know that she was worth the wait. And so then it was like, it was super hard, and I thought about sex all the time, because also once you open that door, then you know how good it is, but I just felt like it would be worth it. It'd be worth it. So I do think there's a relation to that, having that mentality, that mindset, to then now going, okay, I do think it's a gift from God, and so let's enjoy it. Not let me just live in guilt or shame, or like it's this taboo thing. And I don't want it to be taboo, especially when it comes to faith, when it comes to people who have a relationship with God and feel like it's an area that you can't go. It's like that unclaimed land.
Yeah.
I was like, let's talk more about it. Let's have a healthier perspective. Because if God didn't give it to us, why is it here?
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's just
no, I love that.
Some thoughts, yeah.
So I remember like when we first got married, or at least the first, let's say 3 years.
3 years. It's a
I
big
don't know.
gap. Okay.
I'm just saying, like it could be around that time.
Yep.
That some of our arguments. I don't even know arguments is the right, but conflicts was you saying, "Hey, I'm really disappointed or feel sad that you don't initiate."
Oh, first 3 years. The first 10 years.
Okay, great. I'm not just kidding. I mean,
hey,
it
we're
could
getting
be.
Unguarded. We're being real, right?
No, I know. It could be.
I'm joking, but just meaning it wasn't. Yes, it was a continual thing.
But I feel
not
like
even. I'm not trying to throw shade at you, but it was a real. If we're gonna talk about it, it was a real conflict or area of tension.
Yes.
Because yes, I felt. Sorry, I'll finish this and then let you keep going. Because I did feel like I'm always the one initiating.
Yes.
Kind of how you preface the initial conversation. What do you do when there's different sex drives, you
Yeah.
know? Because for me, I didn't even look at it like I have a higher sex drive than you and you need to match mine. There was like that. I'm going to feel a little girly for a second, I guess. But it's like, kind of, I want to be wanted and desire, like, you know? Can you initiate to show? Because for me, an initiation communicates interest. Initiation communicates attraction, you know? Initiation communicates I'm thinking about you in this aspect of our relationship. Yeah, and it's like, it just feels like it's a one-sided story.
Yeah.
And so we had to deal with it. So yeah, how did we deal with it?
I mean, I think it's a couple of layers. One is, I mean, I think I just had to keep saying, like, I don't know how to be that person. And it's not that I don't want you. I just don't know how to, like, turn it on. Or I don't have it automatically on. So it's like, so to initiate is difficult for me. And so I think for a long time I was like, okay, maybe I'll just be better at trying to initiate. I don't know how. But I just knew I'm going to constantly disappoint. But then I don't know what that conversation was that we had when I was like, can you let me off the hook? I don't know. And can you be okay with you're going to be 99%? Because it may be one of times that I do. But 99%.
I'm still waiting for that time. But yeah.
99% of the time, you're the one that initiates.
Sure.
I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like we came to a better understanding of each other. Okay, so here's the thing. I can take it back another level. That for me, intimacy is about connecting to someone on a deeper level, emotionally.
That's how you would define intimacy.
That's how I define, like,
adding the emotionally part, like, has to be emotionally or emotional?
Oh
is
no,
one
just meaning
aspect?
like deeper, like having a conversation that's deeper than the everyday conversation. So to me, sometimes it's hard because I think some people want the sex and then they'll be like, let's open up and talk. Whereas I'm a little bit more the other way. I'm like, can we open up and talk, and then it like leads into sex. If every sex could lead from a conversation, I'd be happy. Like,
what a Jane Austen mindset. If every conversation can lead to sex.
Not every conversation leads to sex.
No.
Every sex be initiated by a conversation.
Okay. Yes.
It could be written in a book. That would be good. But I think those are my, like, I love those the most. I feel like they're the most passionate times when it's like spontaneous and it's just that we're talking or we're hugging in bed and then it moves into that. Whereas you, on the other hand, are much more like, let's create the environment and you should go and have a shower, like get into the mood of everything. Which is a lot, but then I realized, this is important too, to like care for the things and make it, to treasure it, I guess.
Yeah.
So you put a lot of effort into it, and I really appreciate it. And I feel like you really like help balance us and save us in a lot of ways. Because then I realize, how important it is, if you're married, how important it is to have sex. Because sometimes I do feel like, we're floating and we can float away easily without even realizing it. And sex helps bring us closer together and feels like we're on one page. And it feels like we're knitted together, more bonded together.
So what, and how so? If that's true, right? Propose that sex, when you drift or when you're two ships passing and then whatever, like the act of sex, just the act of sex, physical intimacy, how does that bond you? How does that, because it doesn't always, right? Some people have sex and it actually causes you to drift further apart. So the physical
I don't know. I don't think so. Like,
You don't think there's moments where people have sex and it doesn't bond them?
well, I mean, if in the scriptures it talks about that when two come together and have sex, then it's like you're bonded together. Like you have kind of like a soul tie.
Yeah, like the two should become one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm almost.
But what about if you don't believe in God? You're not married.
But that's the thing. I think that's why it's painful. Why it can be painful. Why sex can be painful is because when you are connected to someone else and you have a soul tie with someone who's broken and you're broken, then it just creates more brokenness. And that's why it can be really powerful and really beautiful, because when it's done in the safety of marriage, then it like helps you focus together, helps you bring you back together. And there is that the gift is used for the right reasons. Whereas when it's outside of it and it's not in a healthy place, then it brings you together, but it ties you to something that maybe you shouldn't be tied to.
So the marriage, the ring, the piece of paper, that's the difference. Just diving in there.
Well, I think it's committing to each other.
Committing to each other, okay. But what if some people are like, and I know people like this, I'm committed, it's my life partner. Like, or even we bought a house together. Like, there is a commitment. We didn't get married, we don't believe in it, but I am committed to them. So what do you feel like is the difference? Why does it not hit the same?
I mean, I think that's a hard question. I think that there is something spiritual about marriage that we don't even really understand.
Yeah.
Like there could be it's like the different dimensions that you cross over that you don't realize you're crossing over when you make that commitment to someone under God and in front of a witness. And maybe that's what it is. There's something that's powerful about having someone witness your commitment to that person and giving your name, even if you keep your other name too. There's something beautiful to say, wherever you go, you carry me with you. And wherever I go, I carry you. And that level of commitment is deeper. It's like, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for you. And that brings a level of a safe ground that you can know you can give everything, all your brokenness, and it will be protected.
Yeah. That's good. Because I think it is the spirit that creates the emotional resonance. It's the spirit that connects the soul. That moves from just a physical act to a spiritual act. I feel like that's even another layer of what can happen in the context of marriage, is that it's not just physical intimacy, but it's actually spiritual intimacy.
Yeah, that's good.
And that it's, in the same way we're talking about, if you're drifting and sex can bring you together, the reason in the context of like God at the center, which we feel like is the healthiest expression of sexuality, right? Because that's what it's about. It doesn't mean that you can't have sex outside of marriage. Of course not. We've both been there, done that.
Yeah.
But the invitation from God, and like my understanding, what drew me to this is why I want this to be a value, is because I felt like it was an invitation from God to say, like, I'm offering you the best. And I want the best for you. And I'm providing the best for you. Will you trust me that it's worth it in the end? Will you trust me that it's different? That even though the act may be the same, sex, the intimacy that you experience in this context is different.
Okay. That's a good point. That with our eyes, it looks the same. But in God's eyes, he's like, you don't even understand the level or layers that happen under the covenant of marriage.
Yeah.
That there's a spiritual thing that's happening when you're having sex that binds you together that's different. It's like a spirit. I mean, I keep thinking like spiritual protection over you and over your marriage.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting thing, that just because we don't see it that way because our physical eyes only see such limited, like there's multiple colors that we probably don't see in the world. But someone who has autism sees all those other colors.
Sure.
So it shows that there are other things we do not see. And so God's trying to teach us, hey, I know you can't see it, and that's why I'm trying to guide you so you can have it. It's like the guide leading the blind.
Yeah.
It's like, will you just trust me even though you don't know, quite understand the level or the depth of what this gift that I've given you is.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've discovered in my life, and it sounds like maybe you have as well, of like the physical intimacy that I longed for and even maybe experienced and stepped into before the covenant of marriage, before under, the umbrella of the protection of God and the anchoring of him at the center of relationship, is that it was completely different, and I think some of it is the freedom. You mentioned this before, the freedom that comes from sex. That sex is supposed to be a space of freedom. It's supposed to be a space of safety. It's not supposed to be layered with guilt and shame, and because I don't think the guilt and shame that comes with it is God imposing on us. It's us, even at our core, knowing that there's more than this. And that even if we can't identify it, even if it's not obvious, it's in the subtlety. I think when it's just, when we're left to ourselves, we at our core know this isn't the ultimate expression of love. All right, that was a huge shift for me. Like I remember, and I've told this story in a message before, of like I was wronged by a girl who like broke my heart and betrayed me with, cheated on me with a friend and all this stuff, and I had the wrong voices in my head, friends like, get her back. So I just idiotically and so stupidly, made a choice to like hurt somebody who had hurt me and to try to embarrass them. And, I was at their house, and we don't need to get into details, but we were doing some things, and my whole goal was to embarrass her the way that she embarrassed me. So I told her I'd drive her to school, and I was going to leave her at the house by herself. Just as a, haha, got you back.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I left the house, as soon as I pulled out, a guy nailed me, and I got in a car accident outside her house. She came rushing out because I thought I was getting something from my car, and then she comes rushing out and sees the car accident, and I have to like lie. I don't have to, but I lied because I feel even more terrible, and now I'm caught, and that I made up something, but I was trying to humiliate someone. And I'll never forget that moment, because it was a marking moment for me of I had a choice to make. Is this who you're going to become? That you're going to use intimacy as a weapon. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to blow it. I'm going to, this was a moment, but I'm not going to be this guy. And I shifted in that moment. I said,
Did you tell her in the end? I forgot.
So long ago, I was like 16.
You should go and apologize to her.
I definitely apologized for
Okay.
sure. Yeah. It came up later. She's married and had kids. She's living her best life. I think running into each other years later, I apologize, because I didn't give all the details, but definitely I was like, hey, yeah, I was leaving you, and yeah, it was just not my best moment. That's the thing, not my best moment, but it marked a moment in my life that I chose. I got to be different. I got to be more. And that's the thing, wherever you are and where the choices that you're making now, that's the beautiful thing about life, is that we can always choose a different future. We can always choose a different story. We can always solidify what matters to us from this moment forward. And for me, in that moment, I was like, yeah, I'm going to.
It's interesting that you use the terminology I was using intimacy to get her back. So the level that she trusted you, that you would take her to school, you use that intimacy to then put it back on her and
Sure.
humiliate her. And I was just thinking, like, I think that's the scary thing when it comes to us humans, when we can use sex as a weapon, either to get back at someone or to or we're trying to find out if they love us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the scary part. It's like when we're trying to gauge our intimacy and the love that person has for us while having sex, or having sex to get it. And that's never really meant to be. It's never meant to be in that order. You're supposed to have the level of intimacy and safety to be, and then sex comes out of that. And then it's beautiful. Then there's no what if, and do you actually really care for me, or do you really love me?
Yeah. What is the relationship between love and intimacy, physical intimacy? How is that an expression of love?
Well, I think maybe even just like a level of service. Like, am I going to serve you? Like, I can't imagine like having sex and then you going, oh yeah, it's all about me. And it's just about my pleasure and my gain. And it's really not about yours. If you get gain from it, great, but it doesn't really matter to me. Whereas when it's true love, you really love that person, then it should be, I'm trying to serve you so that you get everything out of it, and you're serving me, so then we both win. You know?
Yeah. Because do you remember early on, or at some point in our marriage? Well, maybe we can talk about what do you do practically when somebody has a maybe higher sex drive than the other, right? Like, how do you navigate the conversations? You know, like, how do you, like, do you say no? Is it okay to say no? Is it okay to deny? You know, or like, got a headache? Whatever the key buzzwords are. Got a headache.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Not that I've heard these before or anything.
No.
Yeah.
I've never used those terms.
Not tonight, but like, how do you navigate if you're the dance between serving that person and their needs and desires, right? Not that it's only about that, but like, that's a way to love on them, but then at the same time not feel like you have to perform and engage in something that you're not there. Like, what's that balance?
I don't know. I feel it's very nuanced, and I think I'm constantly trying to figure that out, because I'm in a place where I don't know what happened. Maybe I was talking to a friend about that, about whether she says no, doesn't. And for her, it was, she will say maybe like, oh, not tonight, but tomorrow. You know? And I was like, oh, that's a really good thing, just to go, hey, I just don't feel like it today. But I feel like one time when I did say, it's sometimes tough when I say no, then it may hurt. And because you're the one that's extending yourself most of the time, or all the time, then, and that's the thing, I think partly on a deeper level, I just don't have a high sex drive as you do. But also I think partly it's, what if I get rejected if I go for it? Which you would never do. But that's more of a like, probably something I need to dig deeper into, like the psychology of, hey, if I extend myself, it could be even like sexual, or it could be in a friendship in the same way as with a friendship. Like, do I call someone because I was just having can we divert for a second and then go back to
Nope, not yet. Finish the thought first.
Okay, so going for something and knowing, okay, I'm putting myself out there and I could be rejected. And you could say, actually, not tonight. Which I don't think you would ever say not tonight.
Let's put it to the test and
Yeah,
find out.
But it is probably something deeper in me that finds that harder. And I'd rather you it's all you making the work. So anyhow, I don't say no, is I try to say yes. But now I'm trying to say, like, now I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it that I want? What is it that my body is telling me? Like, what am I exhausted? Am I tired? What do I need?
Sure.
And how can we have like a win-win situation here?
Because I remember a defining moment for us early on was, initiating, and then, I think you being like, yeah, I want to be a team player, and I'm down, whatever you need, right? But then I remember us having sex, and I feel like you were doing it just to be a team player. I remember, if you remember, I was like, we stopped, and I was like, hey, let's not do this. Because if you're going to say yes, you're in, I need you to be in. Because I was like, it's not, for me, and the act of sex and the intimacy, again, it's to bring us together. It's the bonding. It's not just for the pleasure. Like that was a part of like, there's pleasure to it, and it's amazing. That's the gift, right? God's like, I want you to enjoy this. But for me, it wasn't enough to just fulfill the pleasure, because that's not rooted enough.
Yeah.
So I remember us having, and it was a marker in our relationship, and it brought us together. Because going, hey, I'd rather you be like, no, not today, or like, I'm not feeling it, than to say yes and not be in it. Because to say yes and not be in it is not fulfilling the soul tie.
Yeah.
That's
a good point.
that we've created. And so, yeah, it was the thing that we...
That's a good point, but sometimes I don't feel like it, and then I get into it.
Totally.
So that
sure.
sometimes
this
it's
time
hard to gauge.
You didn't want to get into it, and you weren't into it.
I couldn't. But I also think that that's like... maybe like I was telling you, I'm like, I feel like now I'm starting to feel my body shift in hormonal. Like when I'm coming into my period or when I'm coming out of my period, then you have different hormones. So it's not just, I don't want it because I don't want to not be with you. It's just because my body just isn't responding or isn't in the same way. So I think that is just as I'm digging deeper and I'm becoming more aware of myself, then I think, and now I'm just being more expressive to you, which I think is helpful, right?
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
Then it's like, okay, this is not anything personal. This is just more, I can't figure it out. So we can't do it tonight.
Yeah.
But yes, I do think, I like what you said, that it's not actually just about you having the pleasure of me performing or pretending to be there, but it's you wanting to connect.
Yeah.
And that's actually more beautiful and more powerful and pleasurable than just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. Because, we were talking to a friend about this conversation, and they were sharing just how, sometimes the performative nature of it can be more detrimental than the actual act of physical intimacy, and that you would think, okay, yeah, I'll be all into, I'll be so into this, and I'll, take it on a performative angle. And even, how many times we talk about people pretending that they're enjoying what's happening, but really they're thinking about something else. And the person can feel that, right? And that's why it's not supposed to be about the act. It's supposed to be about the connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's an essential part of a relationship. Like physical intimacy is essential to a healthy relationship. It just is. Emotional intimacy is also essential to a healthy relationship. But it's when those two things are in, concert with each other. When the emotional resonance is happening and the physical resonance is happening, like that's the secret sauce in a healthy relationship that, is rooted in intimacy.
Yeah.
Because intimacy is really about it's about going to the deep places.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's that we're not dealing with the shallow, and then when you are in those spaces, just having open communication, being expressive about, this is what, and I feel like that was a journey that we had as well, of even a journey I had to overcome. It's like I was very hesitant early on to even to share, hey, this is what I like, this is what interests me, or this is what matters to me, I think that was some of maybe the not having freedom in it, or having like, oh, it just feels a little awkward or feels uncomfortable, And maybe we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
The uncomfortability of,
And pushing through uncomfortability.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
like I remember early on, right? Like when we first got married, it's so weird when, especially in the context of faith, people who, you know, align their lives with Jesus, followers of Jesus, and that are making the decision to withhold as a way to honor him and honor the relationship, right? So now I have sex. So it's like, it's this holding off. It's this no, 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 no.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, one day, literally in one day, everything changes and it's like, okay, fair game, go for it. And it was so weird. It was so awkward, right? We've talked about this. So like that first night, it was like, why are you in my bed? We've never like been allowed to do this, or we've never allowed ourselves to do this. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, that the faucet is turned off and then you just, you know, fire hose now, go. And maybe we don't talk enough about just, that's a journey. It's a transition. Like maybe the expectation is immediately you figure it out and you're good. But it's like, no, you gotta find a rhythm. You gotta find, you know, a comfortability and pushing through the uncomfortability to get comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting point, that it's okay that you have to work at it. Just like we talk about, marriage can be hard work.
Yeah.
It can be beautiful and amazing and a gift. At the same time, it can require hard work. And I think you're right. We should talk about that more, because it is so uncomfortable and there's so much pressure, especially on the first night.
Yep.
So it is good just to be like, hey, I mean, maybe it seems deflating, but it could take years to have like perfect chemistry. That the chemistry may not be there immediately, and you might be not matching. What are you going to say?
And I'm saying, hopefully it's not. That's actually a great point. And I think, and we've talked about this, that it's really important for us that we're getting better in every arena of our life.
Yeah.
That we're growing, we're developing. And yeah, I'm so thankful that I think we have a healthier and more vibrant sex life now than we did 14 years ago. Like, we're more committed to each other now than we were 14 years ago. We're more attracted to each other now than we were 14 years ago, you know? And that's because of years of, you know, chemistry, years of rhythm, years of fighting through the hard and finding the good, you know, rhythms of, oh, okay, this isn't working in this aspect, and so how can I shift and meet you on the other side, right? We've worked really, really hard to make sure that that we're in a great space in this aspect of our relationship, and that's the thing about chemistry, right? Is that it can develop over time, it can deepen over time, and that, you know, we get so caught up in the fireworks of the immediate, you know, like, oh my goodness, the stars aligned when we first met, and it was like, you know, everything was so passionate, and it was so, you know, beautiful, and it was just the livelihood of what we were experiencing was in that moment. But if that's the most passionate moment that you have to look back, then that's a reality that I don't want to have in our lives and in our. I want the most passionate moments to be ahead of us, not behind us.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we've fought to create when it comes to intimacy. And to push through all the uncomfortable moments and all the hard things, and to bring yourself, you know, to it, and be okay with who you are.
That's a good point.
And then go, hey, this is who I am. I'm okay with this. And then also go, be open dialogue, and then you find the rhythm, right? Or sometimes one person needs to push more at a season, and then sometimes that flips, but you're on the same page in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you thinking?
That's good. No, I just think that it's like, it brings, I think, a lot of people hope that if you don't have it yet, fight for it. But if you don't have it, or you feel like your things of the chemistry has lost or dwindled, that it's an indicator that something's not right. That maybe even like not having a great sex means there's something missing outside of the bedroom.
Yeah, it's great.
that there's a disconnect, that you're not feeling valued in some way, or you're not feeling that the other person's caring about the things that are happening in your life.
Yeah.
Because I think there's many ways you open someone up, right? And that can be through conversation or caring for them, or the small things of like you coming home and giving me a kiss. It was so cute. Remember on the kitchen, they were like, River, I just saw them kissing. So I was like, yeah, they do that a lot. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool to watch like our relationship and how they perceive it. And it made me so happy, because I'm like, I want them to see us love each other, be kind to each other, and that there's a healthy, there's sparks, there's chemistry.
Yeah. Because even I think that's really important, because, just last kind of piece that maybe we could talk about. A lot of people have been asking, and it's been more and more popular, about like couples having separate bedrooms, like old school 1950s. And I thought, oh yeah, that was the past. That's not a reality anymore. But what we're finding out more and more is a lot of people are doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness, way more convenient. I have my own space. And I even heard one interview of, somebody, very successful business person, and she was saying that their like whole marriage, they've had separate bedrooms. And she's like, yeah, he knows he cannot come into my room without permission. He literally is not allowed.
Wow.
And then they know whenever he comes in, if he knocks and gets permission, then it's go time. They have sex in her bed, in her room, and then he goes and sleeps in his own room. And for her, it was a completely practical decision, completely efficient. I've got things to do, and I focus, and I want my own space. And I was like, oh, see, that's the danger, and that can be the dissonance, is that it's just a physical act that is like keeping the spark alive. But once it's finished, then we go to our own separate worlds. And that's why we're never supposed to be roommates.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be soulmates, or, even though, I don't
Babe,
believe
I was
in
about to
soulmates.
say, you don't believe in soulmates? You just call me a soulmate?
That's the irony. Yes, you are my soulmate,
Aw.
babe. Just maybe not in the way that it is typically defined.
You know what it is? Maybe that's what you define it, is that you're a soulmate because you choose to be my soulmate.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I loved it. So beautiful.
Were you really going to say
Yes,
that?
yeah.
You can say it. Pretend
You
I
already
didn't say
said it. I don't need to say it.
Okay.
But that's far more profound to me.
Yeah.
That, what makes you a soulmate is you choose to bring your souls together. That it's in the beauty, it's in the sacrifice, it's in the choosing. And it goes beyond yourself, and that's why it broke my heart when I heard that interview. And then I've been reading more and more about it's becoming popular, of people looking for houses and having separate bedrooms to have your own space. And I'm like, see, marriage was never supposed to be about convenience. Marriage was never supposed to be about having your needs met. True marriage, like in the context of how God envisioned and why he invited us into this space where we leave our families to begin a new family, was because there's something about shared weight, something about shared spirit, something about shared commitments, and that it's not about everything being equal and that you figure out how you get yours. It's that you build something equally that is built upon, that goes beyond yourself, that you have a legacy, that as you're starting a family, you're making choices and sacrifices, and that you see your responsibility not for what I can gain, but for what I can create for those who I love the most. And I think that could be a beautiful reshifting and reshaping of sex and intimacy. And I feel like people can have a vibrant and thriving sex life if you ask the question, not what can they do for me, but how can I find ways to serve them, even in this context, and it actually draws us closer. And that if this person is enjoying sex, if this person is enjoying and feeling pleasure and desirable, like that's actually enough for me. And that it doesn't need to be reciprocated, but actually I am fulfilled when I see that you're enjoying life. And it's not just physical intimacy, but I think that's also reality in the lives that we create together.
That was beautiful. I just want to say, it just makes me think, okay, so I had a friend that he had wants sex more, maybe every day. And she's like, I can't do it every day. I just can't. And I felt for her. I'm like, yeah, I couldn't do it either. Like, that just feels like way too high a bar.
Feels like a job.
Yeah, it feels like a job. And then when you were talking, I was like, maybe that's if you have a high libido, higher sex drive, then it's your job, or maybe like something you carry into the relationship, that you're trying to figure out, how do I unlock my person? How do I unlock her so that she knows every day she's the most important person? And that may be through sex, but it may not be.
Yeah.
And that's how I pull her in, because in the end, you'll probably have a more vibrant sex life because you've unlocked whatever it is, that feeling of intimacy. That not even feeling of intimacy, that intimacy is unlocked.
Sure, yeah.
A deeper, like, what is intimacy? Intimacy is knowing someone with everything that's inside of you, your whole soul. Like, I think about God and how he's like, I want to be intimate with you. I want you to know me, and I want to know you. So when you let God know everything, all the mistakes, all the, like, even the day-to-day, like when I let you know, I feel like I'm failing in this, or I'm worried about this, or I'm stressed about that. Like, I'm even telling myself now as I'm saying it, like, I need to remind myself, this is what I need to let you in to whenever I'm feeling anything. Rather than being like the strong one going, it's okay, I can figure this out. Like, that intimacy, like, you want to know those things just in the same way I want to know those things about you.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know I can see if you're struggling, but I don't want to just see that you're struggling. I want to know because you've trusted me with that.
Yeah, it's good.
Knowledge and information. And that closeness builds a trust. That closeness builds something deeper that we can't even really maybe even understand. And the physical act is just an expression of that depth.
Yeah.
And that's why our sex life has got deeper and richer and more beautiful. Because before it was just the physical act and trying to figure it out. Now we've lived, we've cried, we've struggled, we've fought for something. We've gone through hard things together.
Yeah.
And that's what it, like, that's the earth, it's the garden that it's coming out of. So that's why it's important to fight for the person you love, and fight for their wants, their desires, their the things that they're struggling with. Because that type of intimacy will then birth into a better and more beautiful physical intimacy.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Feels like a great place to land the plane.
Yeah. I feel like this conversation could go on forever. So I guess if you have questions about this and you wanting to know more, please DM us. I think what we should do is like a story to say, hey, send us your questions.
Sure, yeah.
And then we could even talk about it in one of the lives, possibly even if it's a section of it. And yeah, we want to fight for marriages. We want people to have a safe place to talk about it.
Yes.
And if we have to go first, which I didn't necessarily want to go first, but if we have to go first, it's worth it for the sake of for people.
Yep.
And just know that we love you. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe. Please subscribe, because I think that's the easiest thing you can do, is just to subscribe. And tell your friends about it, because I think more people need to have this conversation. And might even if you need to send it to your person, your partner, your husband or wife, to let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let us be the opener, and then you guys can talk about it more deeply. So we love you, and we'll see you with the next episode.
I love you.
Great
job today. Crushed it. We love you guys. We'll see you soon.